Hi there. Welcome to my series going over every piece of music in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. This is the 25th episode. Yay! A quarter century, and to mark the occasion we've got big things like Jenova, Emergence, and the end of Chapter 5. And thanks to everyone's submissions, at the very end of the episode we're going to take a quick look back at your highlights from Chapters 1 to 4. So buckle up, we've got aliens to kill. As Cloud and Tifa head down into the hull of the ship, we move to a scene of Hojo being informed about the events aboard the Shinra 8. This moody piece opens on a short melody that, over time, eventually develops enough for us to realize it is in fact the bass synth counter melody from Jenova's theme. Unless I'm forgetting something, these are our first references to Jenova since the Nibelheim flashback in Chapter 1. Having it show up here is, of course, quite appropriate if you know what's coming. As the strings fill in, the piece moves to Jenova's main melody, although there are echoes of Shinra's theme as well, which is again thematically appropriate, although I'm not 100% sure if that is intentional or just a happy byproduct of the two leitmotifs having such similar starting points. As we reach the piece's next swell, it crescendos on a descending two-note melody. This foreshadows one of the ways Jenova's theme is repurposed in the upcoming boss fight, which I will get into later. Also, this is a big clue that this specific track was likely arranged by the arranger of the upcoming Jenova boss fight, which we know was made by Yoshinori Nakamura. Another more obvious clue that this piece was arranged by Nakamura is by what comes next. As the short scene reaches its finale, the Jenova illusions become unmissable as we begin to hear her memorable descending synth riff. The reason this is likely Nakamura is because that synth tone and arpeggiation, how he doubles it and how he gets it to crescendo, is near identical to his own track, Cultivating Madness, from Final Fantasy VII Remake. Following the cutscene, we return to the piece Hurry, Necrotic Entity, which we covered in the last episode, specifically the thumper-esque percussion-only arrangement again, which eventually transitions to the creepy, demented arrangement once we encounter our next round of enemies. The only thing new worth highlighting here is an ominous synth pad layer that plays right before the track starts, right as we return to gameplay following the Hojo cutscene. While this ominous note seems like it's coming out of nowhere, I think it might be the tail end of the previous Hojo cutscene's track, which for whatever reason was chopped up. If we review the end of the cutscene, we hear the Hojo scene and music fade to black, then the scene lifts on Cloud and Tifa, and then the music comes back, followed by a sudden switch to Hurry Necrotic Mix. If you take out the gap, however, you'll see that the two tracks actually go together very smoothly, implying this might have been initially planned as a more seamless transition from cutscene to gameplay. Interesting. Anyhow, Cloud and Tifa fight their way through many more necrotic entities before reuniting with Barret in the hull of the ship. Our next track starts as the scene cuts to Captain Titov. Similar to the last piece, we open on a few incomplete attempts at Jenova's theme, specifically the main descending synth riff. While the piece is about Jenova, at this moment in the scene, we are seeing Titov's indecisiveness, which the sporadic, gorgeous live strings complement well. The next haunting strings melody sounds to me like the B section from Mako Reactor. Following the next swell, we move to the main melody from Jenova's theme. However, the underlying chord changes lack the resolution of the original, instead basking in ambiguous tension chords. All of this is a good way to build up to our boss theme without stealing its thunder. We then move to the main response melody, although the way it's emphasized is very similar to how it shows up early on in Final Fantasy VII Remake's Jenova Quickening. Feels like a deliberate callback, especially since Nakamura pulls the rug from under you by omitting the resolution. Instead, sustained violins play a familiar rising melody before moving to a breathless, swirling melody immediately evocative of Fight On, the boss theme from Final Fantasy VII. The Fight On riff then immediately cuts to maybe my new favorite variation of One Winged Angel. Holy smokes, that is good. What a fantastic pivot. I adore that quarter note low woodwind thump. What a fantastic tone. What is that, like maybe a contrabassoon? At least I think it's a contrabassoon. The strings too, playing the counter melodies atop it, are equally gorgeous. With the way Sephiroth is caressing that Jenova arm, it's like a beautiful tango of doom. There's so much going on here. I love the big gong hits and an electric fuzz guitar low in the mix for added texture. The interplay of the horns, strings, and flute trills are beautifully dizzying too. Hear the commanding brass playing one of Sephiroth's melodies as the strings respond with the descending Jenova riff. Truly breathtaking work from most likely Yoshinori Nakamura, who I am also assuming is not just the arranger of this piece, but also the orchestrator. While Rebirth has dozens and dozens of composers and arrangers, there are only 5 people credited as orchestrators, among which Nakamura is listed. Whether or not this is him, whoever orchestrated this piece gets top marks from me. With the late introduction of the choir, the piece reaches its final passage, one last big, exclusively Jenova-themed build-up that leads us right into our next piece. Talk about an immaculate serve and smash, or whatever the tennis metaphor is there. I don't play tennis. What I mean is, what a beautiful handoff from one piece to the next. So here we are in Jenova Emergence, the boss of Chapter 5, and boy does this piece start strong. We open on a big 2-note riff that sounds new, but it's really just the opening notes of the Jenova synth ostinato, repurposed and with a very different emphasis. Talk about menacing. The way Nakamura has taken a snippet of a larger villain theme and given it fresh new legs is something we've seen before in Rebirth. All the way back in Chapter 1, we saw Shotaro Shima weaponize a fairly esoteric chunk of One Winged Angel into the main leitmotif for this younger, pre-Jenova Epiphany soldier. Similarly, is there a significance to this new truncated Jenova theme? This is Jenova's Emergence, or in the Japanese title, her birth, which might explain why the full riff isn't fully developed yet. But this is just the beginning of Nakamura's wild and wonderful depiction of Jenova's theme. From the aggressive 2-note jump, we move right into the classic bassline riff on a warm bass synth, and then within another few seconds we've already modulated to another key. Seconds later, we get a new Nakamura section seemingly based around fragmented Jenova melodies, before again immediately interrupting that with a return to our 2-note Jenova riff. Jesus, all within 20 seconds. Nakamura is channeling some of Mitsuto Suzuki's manic Red's Dance energy from last episode, but instead of applying it to a cutscene with an anthropomorphized dancing dog, it's used to score Rebirth's most epic and dramatic battle to date. That whole opening, along with the rest of the piece, is a complete sensory overload that really demands a solid familiarity of the original source material for it to really sing. So to make sure we're all on the same page, I'd like to go over the various elements, the tentacles, if you will, of the 1997 Nobuo Uematsu original, along with the labels I used to describe them. Otherwise, we're going to get lost in the sauce. We open on the iconic descending synth ostinato. This is the primary Jenova leitmotif, known to just about everyone and their grandmothers. I'm going to refer to this as the synth riff. After 4 bars, a menacing counter ostinato comes in underneath the synth riff, played by a bass synth. I'm calling this the bass riff. While in the original game it is only used as an accompaniment of the synth riff, because of its dark urgency, it works quite well as a standalone leitmotif for Jenova, which Remake and Rebirth use often. Next, the piece moves to the verse section. Here, the synth riff and bass riff continue, but with a new tension-filled melody laid over top it. There's a lot to say about this melody and the clever ways it modulates the entire piece, but all you need to know is that I'm labeling this as the main melody. Following this melody, we get a new response melody with less tension and more overt sadness. You can maybe think of it as humanity lamenting the hurt caused by Jenova, or the party pushing back against it. Either way, it's clearly in conversation with the main melody, although it is functionally quite different. I'm going to label this the response passage. And last but not least, we have the heroic chorus, for lack of a better word. The melody here, paired with a slew of heretofore unseen major chords, is much more triumphant than the rest of the piece. You can think of it as our heroes fighting back against evil. As such, I'm calling this the Triumph Passage. Afterward, the piece loops. What I didn't label were the more general accents and flourishes that mostly play throughout, such as the disco drum beat, the big tom rolls, the waxing and waning strings lines, and of course the fast drum roll plus trumpet combos. But really, it's that descending synth riff, the first one you hear, that has largely defined our collective memory of Jenova. It's how Nakamura can get away with making a powerful statement out of just the first two notes. It's also why the Jenova track from Remake is so beloved. In Final Fantasy VII Remake, Tadayoshi Makino's Jenova Quickening is the main arrangement of the theme, and boy, what a piece it is. Makino spends several minutes slowly building up the track with slow brooding strings, brass, and choir. It isn't what one would expect when thinking of Jenova and her fast-as-heck disco drum beat and synthetic riff, yet for the majority of Quickening's runtime, we bask in this more orchestral, remake-esque sounding variation of the theme, which is what makes the track's finale that much more surprising. At the 11th hour, Makino brings in the synth riff, the kick drum, the gnarly bass riff, the fast snare accents, the big toms, shout out to Big Tom, It's a faithful retelling of Uematsu's Jenova, sounding better than ever. But what really makes it sing is because of the contrast of what came before. If this entire battle had started with this section, instead of slowly building up for several phases, it wouldn't have had such a strong impact on so many. This moment in Jenova Quickening is among the most memorable moments in all of Final Fantasy VII Remake, and I'm sure this thought was eating at Nakamura when he sat down to compose this new Rebirth arrangement of Jenova. He couldn't just do Makino's trick again. And to make the job even more difficult, in the original Final Fantasy VII, it's this scene here on the Shinra 8 that properly introduces Jenova and her theme. This is one of FF7's most dramatic and chilling sequences, but Remake stole its thunder by, arguably prematurely, introducing her all the way back at the end of the Midgar arc. With Remake stealing Jenova's introduction and Makino already producing a fantastic dramatic variation of her theme that toys with our expectations, for Rebirth's Chapter 5 finale, Nakamura truly had his hands tied. And yet, with Emergence, Nakamura proved there are still countless ways to surprise. Makino had already done the slow payoff to the faithful synth riff, so instead, Nakamura disregards the pomp, and less than half of a minute into the piece, he unceremoniously tosses the synth riff with frenetic strings, gated synths, brass accents, and a heavy electronic kick drum that all very, very rapidly rise in tempo until the whole thing implodes. Whoa! The immediate off-kilter and irreverent appearance of the synth-riff tells you everything you need to know about this version of Jenova's theme. If Remake's Jenova Quickening was a joyous subversion of Uematsu's original, Nakamura's Jenova Emergence is a chaos-drenched reinvention. Anyway, the accelerating synth-riff brings the manic intro to an end as we move to the first proper verse. Things are positively sumptuous here as we get a blend of heavy guitars, a slippery, insect-like electronic drum beat, an ominous bass synth layer that coats the whole thing, and, of course, the classic Jenova synth riff. This already fairly novel mix then gets a big lift thanks to a female choir chanting the main melody. way this choir is singing doesn't sound like any of the choirs we've heard before in Rebirth. From what I can tell, these singers are employing a vocal technique which I've only recently found out is called white voice, and is synonymous with many Slavic musical traditions. I hadn't heard of this technique by its proper name before, nor was I aware of its cultural origin. Because of how often it shows up in Japanese media, I guess I just naively assumed it was derived from some form of Japanese folk singing. But more likely, the Japanese composers are going for an opposite association. It's a very distant sound for them, which gives the vocal styling a mysterious or even alien feel to it. Oh, alien. Of course. Anyhow, the vocals sound great here. Next, we get our first taste of the response passage. There's an interesting dynamic here. As the response passage begins, all the electronic and synthetic elements, i.e. synths, electric guitars, electric drum beat, bow out, allowing the orchestra to take the rein. But this only happens briefly. By the end of the phrase, the more organic orchestra is gone and the synthetic elements are back. This observation really sank in as something, following a comment on the last video pointing out a theory about the pointed use of synth and non-synth elements in the following Jenova arrangement, which we won't actually hear until much later in the game. There's a similar tension here, clearly, with the push and pull of the instrumentation. It's easy to imagine the response passage with its organic orchestra as the party fighting back against Jenova's gnarly guitars, synths, and surreal vocals. So if the response passage is the party pushing back, naturally the triumph passage would be them persevering. Except that wouldn't make sense at such an early point in the battle. So while Nakamura does move to the triumph passage next, there is nothing victorious in how he's presented it. For one, it's not the whole orchestra. It's a lone English horn or something, followed by a flute, both alluding to the triumph melody, but it's quite thin and in an ominous minor key. It's almost like Jenova is mocking us. Following our not very triumphant triumph passage, the piece moves to a slower orchestra swell, the descending melody evoking Jenova as always. Once you reach the first damage threshold, the track closes out whichever bar it's on, then cuts to a unique cutscene transition layer. While Makino's quickening arrangement from Remake typically grew and grew as we moved between phases, in Rebirth's Emergence, things actually become more aimless with only scattershot textures. We've got whispery voices run through an echo pedal, 16th note strings trills, siren-like swirling violins, blaring trumpets. These all come together to convey feelings of anxiety and dread as Jenova sprouts new arms, legs, eyes, and whatever the heck is going on with its mouth. disorganized chaos of this phase eventually finds some sort of momentum though, as the strings bring back the bass synth's countermelody. This then makes way to a fairly unique passage. The strings and woodwind very rapidly repeat the bass synth ostinato as a soft electronic percussive layer drives the momentum. I'm still not entirely sure why this is, but this section immediately reminded me of Spider-Man. Yeah, like right when he gets his powers or something. Like we're diving into his veins or something as the radioactive spider bites him. Yeah, I don't know why, but it's a very vivid association with this short, specific section of the music. Something about those ostinatos have a decidedly un-Jenova-esque whimsy to them that remind me of Peter Parker getting his powers. Do you know what I mean? Am I losing it? Leave a like if I am losing it. Anyway, we get a few fun variations of the ostinato synth riff in there. Trumpets chopping up the riff, violins playing it in halftime, and then once again in dizzying 16th note trills. All of these variations signal the unpredictability of the enemy. Getting her health down to about 30% triggers the cutscene leading to the final phase of the battle. The heavy guitar, choir, and synth-heavy instrumentation from Phase 1 are back, along with an even harsher, more frantic mix. There's an urgency to the battle now, with every third bar punctuated by Nakamura's two-note variation of the Jenova synth riff, first introduced at the beginning of the battle. Half a minute in, the aggressive synthetic mix subsides, replaced with just the choir and orchestra repeating the main melody, although it sounds a bit more heroic this time. There's a hint of victory on the horizon. The fight isn't over yet. The final battle is fought inside the response passage, where we hear opposing forces all playing in tandem. The trumpets and violins playing off each other, the double bass playing the bass riff ostinato, the gnarly crawling electronic drum beat driving the whole piece forward, new syncopated vocal shouts, and, of course, the classic synth riff, which traditionally isn't present during the response passage. Yet here it is. Truly, everyone is here. Well, almost everyone. There it is. At long last, with the battle's end close at hand, we finally get our payoff. The Triumph Passage in all its, well, triumph. Upon landing the killing blow, we transition to the dramatic outro. At the very, very end, as the strings resolve on their root note, Sephiroth plants seeds of doubt into Cloud's memories of Tifa. Similarly, the music matches the moment by having some subtle woodwinds creeping in, reintroducing that sense of unease following the natural resolution. Following that, our last piece of the episode begins. This is a very simple atmospheric piece comprised of a few synth textures. These are devoid of melodies, functioning instead as just a means to digest and process the melody-rammed preceding track. Following the Jenova battle, even the musicians are left speechless. The track resolves on a warm major chord, a positive outlook on our whirlwind of emotions aboard the Shinra 8. Is another chapter of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth done and dusted. You don't need to see the spreadsheet to know this was a much leaner chapter than the previous one, but let's take a gander at it anyway. All told, I counted 21 pieces of new music, although FF7 Music on Twitter pointed out to me that the resting music we hear in Part 24 is actually taken from Ever Crisis. So technically 20 new pieces, 9 of which weren't included in the Rebirth original soundtrack. Also, more than half of the music in this chapter was dedicated to an optional card game tournament, and it was all of an exceedingly high quality. The amount of time and effort that went into this score is something that really needs to be studied. Good thing that's exactly what we're doing here. Also, outside of the Queen's Blood victory loss draw music, there was no repeat music from previous chapters. That's kind of cool. Lastly, this brings my track count up to about 205 pieces, give or take, depending on how you demarcate some tracks. 200 tracks, and we are not even halfway through the game. Let that sink in. If you need help digesting this information, the latest version of my spreadsheet is now available on Patreon to my Composer tier patrons. Big shout out to them and all my patrons who are keeping this series alive. Considering how many tracks are left and how few views these videos get, a saner man would have given up on this series probably 10 episodes ago. It is entirely thanks to your financial support that I am able to put YouTube's extremely loud metrics aside and continue on this journey. So please, if it's within your means, take a gander at the Patreon. Also, if you were a patron, you would already know that my next non-Rebirth video will be Bloodborne: The Old Hunters. I said I would revisit Bloodborne if my video from last April did well enough, and it sure did. It has about the same amount of views as my entire Rebirth series combined. So yes, a video on The Old Hunters is coming. Soon, actually. The 10th anniversary of said DLC is coming up, and I'm hoping to have it out in time for that. Afterward, we move on to Chapter 6 and Costa del Sol, at long last. But before all of that, it's time for our Rebirth People's Choice Awards. No, I never found a better title for it. So without further ado, take it away, Future Pat. Thank you, Past Pat, and welcome to the Rebirth People's Choices Award. So I'm going to list on screen every track that's received at least one vote, but we're only going to look at the top 3. 5? No, let's do 3. Top 3. This episode's long enough as it is. I think so. I haven't edited this episode yet. Was the Jenova part good? I hope it was good. So chapter 4, here we go. Third place is coming in with 12.12% of the votes. Rah Rah Roche. Very good. Very good. Very good. Second place, Stamp Rebirth. Stamp Rebirth came in at 15% of the votes. And now first place coming in with 21.21. So that's pretty good. That's a fifth. That's a bit over a fifth. Almost a quarter of the votes went to Stamp Battle Edit. Yes, congratulations to the dog. He's not here to accept this award, but I'm sure he'd say something like, also, I didn't mention these votes are from the YouTube comments and the Billy comments. If you're looking at this list and you're seeing I didn't list on screen the track you selected, I'm bad at this stuff. It's very possible I skipped over someone. You know what? It's possible that I voted that I gave someone 2 votes. Like I might have written someone down. Oh, cool. Added it and then added it a second time. I don't think so. I don't think I made any mistakes, but like apologies in advance. My video. But for what it's worth, I didn't vote on these. So I didn't tip the scales here. If I had to vote on this one, yeah, I'd probably give it to the dog. Chapter 3. So we have way fewer tracks to work with here. So interestingly, just about everything aside from the brief interstitial cutscene music, everything else got at least a vote or 2 or 3 or more. Coming in at third place, we got the Turks' latest and greatest, Elena. With 20.59% of the votes. That's a lot. That's a lot for third place. Can't go wrong there. Number 2, and I'll say this is my pick. This is my number 1. Subterranean Grind. Or as I called it, Ground in episode 11 or whenever we did that. With 20. Oh no, that's right. I forgot. Number 2 and number 1 both got the same amount of votes coming in at 23.53% of the viewers, or the commenters. The commenters have voted. It's a pretty small subsection. So it's a 2-way tie between Subterranean Grind and Follow the Black Robes Mithril Mine. Although the second field and battle variant, what did I call it? The 2 Grand Gig and Anger Max, those also got quite a few votes. But yeah, Follow the Black Robes, Mithril Mine, and Subterranean Grind. Shima coming in with two victories, and then Furukawa coming in third for our top 3. And I guess I didn't look at. Yeah, I guess it was all Suzuki for chapter 4. So a little quick hat trick for Suzuki. Next up is the sprawling chapter 2. There were a lot of things to choose from here. I was surprised to see that no one picked Queen's Blood. That surprised me. That's a big one. I thought it was a big one. Maybe if we weren't oversaturated with Queen's Bloodness after all of chapter 4, maybe it would have ranked higher or lower. I don't know. I guess it can't go lower than none. So coming in third place with what, 11.63% of the votes is the FF7 main theme battle edit. Very nice. Congratulations. The main grasslands exploration theme also got quite a few votes, but that's so not as high. The battle edit really is a lot of love for that. A lot of good anecdotes about that one. Second place is speaking of battle edits, the Hollow Skies battle edit by Makino. Great track. That was 16.28% of the votes, so more. And then the next one, off by 1 point, which won by a vote, only one more vote than Hollow Skies, is my personal pick, course. Of course. Who else? Who else? When you say Kyrie? Actually, Kyrie did quite well. She got almost 7%. She was tied. Actually, she's tied with Grasslands and Hollow Skies, the non-battle versions. Kyrie did quite well. So I should. But Chadley, the king, won. Of course. So that gives us Shima in first. That's Shima with 2 gold medals now. And then Makino, Shima again. All right. Also, no one voted Hip Hop the Chocobo. Just putting it out there. And finally, Chapter 1. All right. Third place is a 2-way tie between Country Bumpkin Tifa which is my pick, and Another Buster Sword. Two great tracks. We still don't know who did Country Bumpkin Tifa. I think that's gotta be Shima. But Another Buster Sword is unique because it's the sole Hamozu contribution we've covered so far in the 200 tracks that we have now covered in up to episode 25. Not bad. A bronze finish, a shared bronze finish for his sole contribution is a pretty good batting average. You know? Bing. Second place with 18.60, or I guess I should just say 18.6. That's how math works. Of the votes is Materia Guardian. Really cannot go wrong with that one. Really cannot go wrong. And finally, in first place with a landslide of 41.86% of the votes toward Mount Nebel. Yeah, hard to argue with that either. Though cool to see how so much consensus around that one. Again, a lot of comments about this one, talking about how emotional they got at this moment in the game, which is, frankly, I think the best compliment you can give to a piece of music. So, well done to Shima, and Hamozu. And that about wraps it up. So that's 25 episodes done. Thank you everyone for sticking around. I think because we have, at least 25 more, I thought we'd take a quick look at the past, present, and future with the help of these amazing FF7 tarot cards that I bought a while back from, what's the artist's name? Crimson Sun, I think is their name. Patreon.com/Crimbly. Yeah, anyways. If you haven't seen these, oh my god, these are so nice. So I thought we'd do a really quick divination to look at the past, look at the present, and look at the future. What are the next 25, 30 episodes? What kind of themes are we gonna be looking at? So let's do that. Let's do that real quick. So yeah, the artist is Crimson Sun. I had to join their Patreon for a bit because you bought it through their Patreon shop, and it wasn't clear like when it was going to come back in stock. So it took me a while to get it, but I was really blown away by these. Now let's go. Keeping this simple: past, present, future, and it's might be literal, might be metaphorical. You can read into this as much or as little as you want. So here we go. I guess I should do this on screen because for all you know, I am just like. I pretend to shuffle these, and then I've got these in a set order so I can have Chadley. So let me do one final shuffle of the past. Here we go. Sorry, staying in the front. Whoa, this one's upside down. Hey, look who it is. It's Reeves with the cat. Very cute. Interesting that this was upward. Like, how did this happen? How did this get flipped over? When did I do this? I'm just gonna. This doesn't count, but I think there's something there. Kate Sith, whom we haven't seen yet, we haven't heard a lick of his theme, has just sort of appeared in this shuffle. Very interesting. I'm gonna put him back in the pack, But let's keep that in mind. It's something out of time almost. It's not the past, present, or future. There's just something about a surprise Kate Sith. Interesting. All right, the past. All right, I can't see what I'm looking at. This is too far. Oh, it's Bizarro Sephiroth. Sorry, I'm kind of again. I'm working through my mic here, so it's hard to see. But it's Bizarro Sephiroth, which is not the past. That's the future. Represents our past. What does that mean? I remember there was a comment that said they heard a bit of Birth of a God in Midgarstormer, and I could not get it to click. I couldn't hear the reference, but maybe this is what this is like, the ghost of YouTube past being like, Pat, you didn't fully engage with this comment. I gotta double check that reference, see if I can find. Because Birth of a God, incredible track. Looking forward to hearing that, not in our future, but in our distant future, in our Part 3 future. So is that why this is here? Because Birth of the God is in Midgarstormer, or is there another reason? Was it the birth of a god, i.e. this game, the birth of this game has created my new god because I've devoted so much of my life to... Anyways, let's keep going. Present, this is the now. This is now. All right, here, sorry. Shuffle on screen. If I got any tarot masters that are watching this, I'm really sorry. I'm sorry if I'm like, are you not supposed to shuffle after you've begun the draw? Probably not. That feels bad. Okay, well, so apologies. The present. This is our present. Here we go. Okay, I gotta get close. Okay, so we got the statue of the president, and is that supposed to be Vincent? Is that Vincent as a Turks? It's got to be, right? Again, kind of odd to see that in the present. You know, that again strikes me more as a future thing. So why we got this guy right now? Well, maybe it's referring to right now I need to work on my Bloodborne video. And if there's anything that is Bloodborne-esque in FF7, it is our brooding vampire here. So yeah, I'm going to say this on a level represents Bloodborne. And you know another thing I'm not doing? All these cards are right side up. Well, almost all these cards. I feel like that's a whole thing too, right? You get like the reversed upside down stuff. No, I'm not getting enough of that. I should have done some like wicked omni spin shuffle, but I did not. Past, present, future. Here we go. We got Hojo with a gun. I mean, we are going to get more Hojo. That's for sure. But what is the symbolism, right? I don't know the answer, and I would love to hear your theories, but maybe they will just appear to us. I'm trying to figure out what this means. Like, I realize it's Hojo. We're going to see Hojo, but why? What are they trying to tell me? So yeah, Bizarro Sephiroth, probably Vincent, and Hojo. What does it mean? Past, present, future? I'm not sure. I'll think about it. I'll keep it. Oh, and mysterious surprise Kate Sith. Okay, that's it from me and Tifa. Take care. Bye.